So the word on the screen is obviously nationalism. With the rise in these different ideas that we're taking a look at, the revolutions that the Enlightenment will lead to, there's a rise in the concept of what we call nationalism. Now, nationalism as an idea can trace its European roots to the French Revolution and the conquest of Napoleon, when the French population began to identify with the nation of France rather than the town or village into which they were born. French expansion greatly influenced the Italian and German movements for independence and a national unity. That's why we have these two flags here. The Industrial Revolution will similarly inspire nationalism among the Brits due to the emergence of a nationwide economy where workers and citizens will identify with their nation rather than their region. So, 3 characteristics. Part 1, devotion to the interest, culture of one's nation. Language is the most powerful unifier. When we look at Germany, that is a prime example of how different regions are brought together via a common language. In Italy, it does work to an extent. So we start with language. Regarding the second characteristic, this desire to be freed from such control will inspire others to work together, because when we look at Italy, we're going to be seeing, that the northern Italian states were under the control of Austria. So that's their guiding principle. We need to break away. And finally, when you hold up your nation as better, so to speak, something that's better than others, Germany is the best example of this one. Now, with the rise in nationalism and new attempts at unification, the example we are going to use is Italy. Italy will be our prime example of this. So, 1796. And this is actually, just before Napoleon rises to power. We see all of these different kingdoms and duchies, republics. It's a very divided landscape. Now, Italian liberals had long dreamt of a unified Italy based on language, culture, and history, but there were significant regional differences that needed to be overcome. And the region was long divided, as you can see, into numerous states. Divided into numerous states. So they're still trying to deal with the fallout of Rome. The northern regions are under the rule of the Austrian Empire, and they more resemble Western Europe because they're starting to industrialize. The southern regions are made up mostly of peasants, and they stick to their Catholic roots. And each region speaks a different dialect, so it's very hard for all Italians to even understand each other. So these differences allow conservative factions to prevent unification attempts. Enter this man, Giuseppe Garibaldi. Now, Garibaldi believed in a cultural and political renewal of Italy that would restore his historic greatness. And this renewal is pronounced Risorgimento. So Risorgimento is this movement. He was actually sentenced to death because he was the leader of an uprising in Genoa, and he had to flee to South America. While there, he actually took part in a Brazilian rebellion. So, in a sense, this guy's like a professional revolutionary. Now, Garibaldi was able to return due to events surrounding revolution in 1848 that broke out across the Italian peninsula. To simplify, 1848 was a very interesting year in Europe, and it's often been called the year of revolutions. Rebels in Turin demanded liberal reforms. Protesters in Milan began to turn on Austrian authorities, and in Rome, the citizens declared a republic and chased the Pope out of the city. Now, French forces were sent in to restore papal control, so Garibaldi did go to Rome, where he was defeated. Now, another chance at this unified Italy does emerge in 1860, when the Kingdom of Naples became vulnerable. Garibaldi landed on Sicily, overthrew its ruler, and then landed on the mainland. As his army marched north, they brought Sicily and Naples together into a new Italy in 1861. Now, once this process begins, what was once the dream of a republic was hijacked by conservatives and became a constitutional monarchy with a limited electorate and a weak legislature. The former king of Sardinia, the man you see here, Victor Emmanuel II, became the first king of a unified Italy. Now this, he's a king, it's a monarchy. It's going to crush the dreams of the more radical Republicans. But a unified Italy became a reality. The real prize comes in 1870, when the French garrison protecting the Pope in Rome withdrew. Now, the Pope had lost central Italy in 1860, and now considered himself a prisoner in the Vatican. Hence, Rome became the new capital of a unified Italy. Now, this notion of being Italian, it's foreign, it's new. For the French, their long revolution and empire-building process gave them a new sense of nationalism, whereas the Italians had a very long road ahead of them. The Northerners had begun to urbanize and industrialize, and as we've seen, they had more in common with the lifestyles of Western Europeans than the Mediterranean lifestyles of their new countrymen. The Southerners felt that they were mistreated by their new government due to their perceived backwardness and peasant society that had produced a lot of poverty. They resented the fact that they were treated that way because they emphasized the family and Catholicism, and they insisted on retaining their local customs and traditions. So, common cultural characteristics and a language can help lead to unification in several regions, as we see in Italy, and it helps with the process of nationalism, but that's not to say that struggles don't remain in these regions.